All right, let's see. We're live. Yep, we're live. What's up, guys? John Sentes here. Streak continues, number 85. Please subscribe to the podcast. Sorry, it's a little early morning for us here. Don't forget to go check the website. Podcast has been growing really well. Numbers look really good. Been killing it. Had some great guests over the past couple days. You can check out the website if you need some more information on how to follow it, Cutternation.net. Also, you can check out our online store with our hats. We're fully stocked, ready to ship, ready to get them going, which gets me excited. But without further ado, Kurt Hewes of Ignite Baseball. Kurt, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for taking a little time out of your day.
Not a problem, fellas. How we doing?
It's good, man. Second time on for Kurt. We were just talking about Kurt.
Yep.
I think that's a Minnesota Kurt. Yeah, no, I've the first episode, I think it got lost in the internet. But regardless, for those of you that don't know him, I know Kurt through the internet and Instagram, and we got connected for hitting. So, Kurt, just assume that nobody knows anything about you. Tell us a little bit more about your kind of journey to get to where you're at today. So just lay that kind of Ignite 101, and obviously you're,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I guess in kind of like a lot of hitters that were not like super athletically gifted, like I always felt like I could make myself better by like trying to listen to everybody's advice and try to like make my own swing like awesome. And that kind of like failed me in college, and I realized that like a lot of people were messing things up, which I think is kind of like a generally established thing now in 2020, when maybe in 2009 when I was going through that wasn't as an established thing. So I kind of got frustrated. It's like, well, if no one's going to do this, I guess I will. And now a lot of people are doing it kind of like me, but it is what it is on that front. So I started Ignite in 2016, and I started teaching. I was teaching like lessons and stuff, like hitting lessons out of like backyards and like batting cages, like wherever. Now I, with a couple other guys, own a baseball and softball training facility in Arlington, Virginia. We've been open since November, and I mean it's going great. And you know, we really pride ourselves on the way that we do all things baseball and softball, but in particular myself, I really take pride in the hitting aspect of it. So that's kind of my thing.
So to give you some context, I don't know, I always think about you as like coming from the baseball rebellion side, and please touch on that and clarify for everybody. But also one thing that I've really appreciated is, Kurt and I have had this professional relationship that has grown into a much more personal relationship. Never met each other, which is hilarious. Never seen him in person. You could just be an avatar for all I know. And but it's the idea that like it's not stopping with Kurt, right? So I always forget because there's so many FRCs and FMCs, but I know that like gait analysis and some of that movement quality stuff has been something that you've really dug into lately. Yep. So do you want to kind of like, I don't know, you don't have to shout them out, however you want to think about it, just kind of like walk through some of your influences. Like I'm always going to tell people that, I was basically trained Ron Wolforth. I didn't have coaching growing up, so I just like played the game, and try to give us a little like timeline of how things happen for you.
Yeah. So
John is gone apparently.
That's okay. He'll be back.
He'll be back.
So yeah, influences for me, like I read Positional Hitting by Jamie Savalas. I think he actually is a guy out in California. If you don't know who he is, he was Ben Zobrist's hitting coach, like when he was like kind of making it big. I believe he worked with Raul Ibanez a little bit as well. He wrote a book called Positional Hitting. At the time, I was kind of like a back and forth on a bunch of stuff because like I'd read like Ted Williams's Science of Hitting when I was in high school. But then I had all these coaches saying other things, so I was kind of confused. And when I read Positional Hitting, I was like, well, this can't be wrong. Like the guy basically just took a bunch of pictures from, MLB hitters and like kind of put them in a frame by frame analysis of like what they were doing. And I was like, well, at least like this, like the bones of this are right. This can't be wrong. So that was kind of my initial thing. And then I stumbled across Baseball Rebellion because of I don't exactly remember how I stumbled across them, but I did. I mean, they have a pretty big online presence. So, I stumbled across their stuff, was like, okay, well, this is really smart too. So that was kind of the things that got me going and understanding like the way that, hitting was a rotation and, getting the right bat angle and, shoulder plane and that kind of stuff. But then like, once I started to figure all that stuff out, like Cass had alluded to earlier, like I got really into, and I have been really into posture and like gait analysis and that kind of stuff, because I found that has a lot of relation to how effective hitters can be and how effective movers can be as well. So I've been really down that rabbit hole for the last, I guess, year, maybe a little bit more. And the person that I've been following probably the most, it's kind of a controversial internet guy, meaning he's probably not the most politically correct person to follow online. But his name is Nadi Aguilar. He runs a company called Functional Patterns. Has a bunch of really weird stuff. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Alex Rojas was on Nama Strength Athletics. If he brought him up, so that was one of the guys that he name dropped. Yep. As far as being an influence on him, and he's only like late 20s, and he is brilliant. So I highly encourage that episode. Watch that, Kurt, because he has some crazy. He's like a WEC method. Like anyway, sorry, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, Nadi Aguilar, really smart.
But he also said controversial. That's why I was like, oh, that's why I know that you're saying the same person.
In a human movement sense, he's incredibly smart. I mean, just especially like, and this is true from a throwing perspective as well. Like, the three things that he really focuses on the most are like, baseline posture, like your gait mechanics, and whether that be like you're walking or running, and then also throwing mechanics, because he views that as a baseline human movement that like was necessary for survival.
I love that. WEC says that same thing too, and man, for the record, I didn't call him out on this yesterday, but Zach Dials had talked about. He said we are overhead athletes, and that's something I don't know where this was triggered, but like I really have a problem with that idea, because we're not. Like, that is, the humerus is not above the shoulder, so how are we overhead?
I think the challenge is like we should be overhead athletes, meaning like the way that our body's designed, we should be able to make our superficial our frontal line stretch enough so that way our chest can kind of rise up this way, thus we can get over our head more and more. But like the problem is that so many people are kind of in this extended superficial backline position with their chest kind of compressed. So their ability to get their hands overhead is really impaired by that.
But so why do we need to be overhead?
Why? I mean,
when are you just put your humerus above your shoulder?
Sure.
When are you doing that?
Well, like at the end of our throw, do we not get here or no?
Humerus is in line with the shoulders. No, humerus is in line with the shoulders, and then you have you just have tilt.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
it's just interesting. It's interesting because that's not. I mean, that's really not my lane. You know, I actually can't classify all of these things, but I'm like, okay, well, this is an interesting thing too. Again, I'm just thinking out loud. So the blast motion idea of like getting on plane, that started getting me going. Okay, that's the bat, perpendicular to the spine. And for me, for us, and I was like, oh, humerus perpendicular to the spine. That's why everybody's shortening their arm path. That's why driveline takes people right here. That's why everybody does that. Right. So we're not putting us above that. So anyway, I understand it, but I'm always like, I don't understand why we're classified as overhead athletes. Our humerus should never get above the shoulder. And when it does, it's a problem. So
I think it's more about the end of the throw that I think that their perspective would be it's more of,
hand is slightly like Porcio lays this shit out like totally. So some of this work is years and years old, but like
sure,
the hand should be if the shoulders are at parallel to the ground, the hand is only going to be above that line 5 to 10 degrees, and if I was being extreme, I'd maybe say 15.
So I think okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. So we said, like, why do we need to be overhead? Is that
No. Okay.
was
So
what you
if
said?
we're going
What
to
was your
backtrack,
question?
we're going to say we should define overhead then, if that's where we're going to start. Because when I say overhead, and when you just did that, you put your arms above your head, above your shoulder, right?
Sure.
And that's what overhead is. If I was going to go train an overhead squat, my humerus gets above my shoulder. I'm going to
Sure.
like all of these things. I don't do overhead things without putting the humerus above the shoulder. So I feel like that's in the definition. And that's one of the almost unhealthy things for a thrower to do. I mean, can you imagine do hitters? I mean,
No.
even like a Javi Baez with a really high back elbow, it's still
No.
in relation to the shoulders.
Let me jump back. So when I was talking about like chest versus not being able to get overhead versus being erect and being able to get overhead, what I was talking about more was like learning how like to create space between your vertebrae so you can rotate more efficiently. So like when people are kind of like crushed rib cage, kind of like this, and they can't get their arms overhead, it's not a problem from like a throwing, from where your arm actually gets in the throw context. It's a problem in a rotational context, because if your rib cage is compressed and there's no space between the vertebrae, your ability to actually rotate is really hindered. So a lot of times, like, you can do overhead exercises, and I don't mean like something where you put a bar over your head. I mean like some gait mechanics type stuff where you like go like kick one leg back and go up with the other leg to try to like learn how to create space in between your vertebrae, like right here on either side, which can enhance like rotational capabilities. So I don't necessarily mean it in terms of like, this is what we look like when we throw. I mean it like, how do we take people that can't rotate and turn them into people that can rotate? Does that make sense?
So I can train that person. Well, I don't know. It's out of my lane, because I'm thinking of like, okay, if I want to train overhead, I'm going to go landmine press, because that's the safest overhead way that I know how to get overhead.
That'll work.
Okay, well then again, my point is like this is like movement quality stuff. Like this is like get the body that you're using to be functional and ready to go, right? Like maximize that.
Sure.
But then this is where I really have a problem, is that this is affecting like return to throw protocol. This is affecting rehab stuff. Like this is affecting the way that people approach it. And I'm trying to figure out why it's helped. Okay, here's another thing. Okay, so fix that posture. Okay, the rib cage stuff. Does that have anything to do with what's happening in the throwing shoulder joint?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, like, does the shoulder joint affect the rib cage?
The shoulders sit on the thorax. So when the shoulders sit on the thorax, the angle of the thorax, like if you have you can't see my shoulders, but if my shoulders are like really compressed like this, then like if you think about like if my arm here, I'll flip it this way as long as it goes with me. Like the joint right here, the way the shoulder sits is relative to the way that my thorax is kind of laid out. So if my thorax is flat on top and my shoulders can sit flat on top, my range of motion can be like all the way up here, which I know from a throwing perspective doesn't necessarily matter. But then also like I'm kind of more down here. So my ability to get my arm like
Here's my question.
Is
can you do the right rib cage right now and reach your hand to the right as far as you possibly can? Like humor me for a second.
Sure.
Reach your right hand as far to your right as possible.
There's a wall there, so I gotta move, but
there you go. Yeah, I don't even need to see it. You just do it. Okay, as far as you possibly can. Distract this hand as far as, okay? Yep. And then, so by the way, you don't have to flex your elbow to do that. You could just do that in the shoulder, right? And so my question is this to me is what we are doing. Sure. We're going as far away from we possibly can. Put your hand 5 degrees higher, and now you have, that's not 5, but you get the idea.
Sorry. Yep, sure.
It's okay. Yep. It's okay. And it would be completely extended right now, right? So that's, you get 5 to 10 degrees above the shoulder, and that's typically where most people lie. And so what I'm saying is do that, and then fix the posture things. And is that way different? Or does that help you understand where I'm coming from or no?
do that and then fix it. But like what I'm okay.
So I'm asking you if does the act of training pressing overhead, moving the hand in that direction, help the posture more effectively than you reaching the hand, distracting that away from the shoulder, which is what we actually do, and then can you still fix the posture as effectively? And I'm open to understanding why.
Well, I think the primary reason that going overhead is better in that sense is that like when you think about like the muscles that like are in your back slash like your rib cage, so like your scalenes are neck, but scalene, serratus, your intercostals, like they have two functions primarily. Like their one function is to be able to kind of like get things to go forward. And then like if you look at like the serratus posterior, their other function is to like elevate. So like it's here and here are the two ways that muscle works. So like we need to train the elevation component to be able to create space, so that way we have room to decelerate. So when we get out here, our shoulder isn't
okay. So
just
here, right there,
here.
right there. What my question is in that space right there, like can't you train that without talking about the arms?
Sure.
Well, you just said serratus, you said scalene, and you said right. You didn't say we're not talking about affecting the shoulder joint. And then we're talking about how those things affect the shoulder joint.
Yes.
Right. So I'm not saying like you don't need to train overhead to achieve those things. Like you need to train the serratus. You need to train whatever you just said to allow the posture to happen. I don't understand how training the humerus to be above that. That's what I don't understand.
So I guess the question is like, how do we train
without going overhead?
Without going overhead.
That's the answer that I'm looking for. Okay. So, okay. And this also makes sense. You just answered it.
Yeah.
So Cressy also talks about how because pitchers have been so over-cued to think shoulder blades down and back, that this also creates a completely different imbalance where they need to learn how to elevate. Right. And so one of the biggest things that I remember from Cressy that I don't, actually know is that the scapula needs to upwardly rotate. And he doesn't say outwardly rotate. So it is an interesting thing.
Which is kind of what I was saying, is that if the scapula is going to upwardly rotate, then that means that the pec is going to stretch like that, and the chest is going to kind of go back like that. So many pitchers that are at risk for arm injuries are the ones that they get into layback, but they aren't able to actually get their pec to stretch when they get into layback. So these muscles are kind of just like out on their own. Whereas if we can get the pec to stretch when they get into layback, then it passes that stress across the rest of the body, and it can be done in a more healthy way. Yeah,
it's funny that you say that because Rue, the guy that we rent from, the guy that does strength training at our place, he's told me that I have adhesions up across the top of my pec. And like when I wrestled, the first thing that I did in the weight room was bench a ton, and so like, I don't know if you've heard about adhesions or ART, but like, man, I have adhesions all over my body, and that kind of thing makes me wonder if that should be the next place that I'm looking. Because I had, speaking of this, I haven't talked to you about this, Kurt. So, right, you haven't heard me talk about the ART?
I don't think so.
Okay, so everybody has heard it, so I'm not going to sit and go over details, but I had a spot underneath here. That every time I got to rotation where I pronated, it just bothered the crap out of me. So my fastball, it wasn't as bad, but with my slider, like big time, like every time I got to the end of my slider right under here, and then that would travel everywhere else. He got that out, and it was like inches of range of motion. It was crazy how much more I could distract my hand away from my shoulder because of how much that was locking down my lat. Right. And then you can see that. I mean, it's just crazy. And I never heard of an adhesion in my life. So had you ever heard an adhesion like a knot?
I mean, like I've heard about it in like a myofascial release kind of thing, and how like, so yeah, I mean, I guess I hadn't heard of them like referred that way. Yeah.
So he basically is like, what happens is the muscles like get stretched apart and then they come back together and they stick and they get stuck together. And so adhesions can be like tiny, or adhesions can be like, he told me that he had a guy that I don't remember what kind of lifestyle he was leading, but he had an adhesion that was like this big. Like
they can be scar tissue too. If I could be wrong, they can't be scar tissue.
No, because
it's a different thing. It's the fascia getting stuck to the muscle.
Okay.
I think it's fat. I don't know. This is too far beyond my pay grade.
Okay.
But the point is I know that like if he put lotion on my skin, he would rip through my skin. That's how much he's just destroying what he has to literally rip apart the muscles. So
that's wild.
It's crazy. On
very painful, but also very like he did it to my shoulder and like
you did
first. Yeah, he did it to my shoulder.
When?
Way back. I haven't done it like the full session yet. But within 5 minutes, he's hitting my teres minor and then right on top of that nerve. And like I almost passed out. But once he said that I had a pretty gnarly adhesion there. And the crazy thing was when what I felt afterwards was like, I felt like my arm was dead for a little bit, for maybe a minute or two, like I couldn't move it. And then once I could move it, the difference in looseness from my right shoulder to my left shoulder was crazy. It was like I just got this joint like lubed up by a mechanic, and this one felt rusty, you know? And my left arm I never feel like I have any kind of issues in my left arm. And so in my right arm always feels super loose for what I walk around. But that was like a different level. Like that felt mid long toss. Wow, my arm feels really good. Right. Looseness, you know, fully stretched out. And I was completely cold. So there's, you know, like Cass is saying, like there's something there. You know, we got to get
wild stuff. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's where going back to this is I'll let you know. I mean, I haven't been throwing, and I was actually anyway. I don't need to talk about me throwing anymore. But that part, I'm really curious because exactly what you just said. I think I have tight pecs because I haven't even developed my pecs.
Well, that's where your frontal line is.
Like, when you said
right
that,
where you're drawing,
that's
where your frontal line is. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, John.
No, you're fine. No, it's because that's one of the things that I look for when I'm assessing a player is like, you know, how far back can they just get their hands to go behind them? You know what I mean? The old little league stretch where, you know, you thumbs down and they go back like that. And you can see that some kids like, or, you know, they can't even get their hands in line with their shoulders.
Right.
You know, it's like the chest is super. So, you know, I feel like I'm built weird, but I do feel like my upper body has an insane amount of pliability, especially into that shoulder when I'm coming through like that, you know?
Yep.
But my point was that I'm developed everywhere else. Like I do a good job at building muscle mass, and then my chest has never built. And
we get it. You're jacked.
But Cass, also like you've looked at yourself in the mirror, right? Doesn't it like for you? Doesn't it look like from your neck to your shoulders is like a slant of a mountain?
Yep.
So like that would be like a visual symptom of like having a compressed rib cage. So like your shoulders go like this.
What if it's that my traps are always, I don't know, actually, I don't know. Because the other day, this is why I believe you. I'm just saying the other day oh my God, I can't talk. When Rue did ART to me last weekend, there I finished his sentence. My traps lowered by like an inch. It was crazy. So normally my traps are way up here. And he told me that it's because my rhomboids are so overactive that my traps are just constantly fighting them.
Well, what if it also could be that your serratus posterior is just not, it's just overstretched and not turning on in the way it needs to elevate those last couple ribs?
That's
interesting. Where would I find, like, what would limit me? Like, so I can do an overhead squat quite well. Like I do these things. I've gained that range of motion significantly in the past 3 years. And so I just don't, this is the thing. I don't know how much weakness I have. Like I have imbalance, but I'm not like, I don't know that I'm like unable to do this. And so what my point is like, how many adhesions are in the way of me just trying to do this? because I have done so many goddamn corrective exercises. It's unbelievable.
Well,
And Rue is the first person that has actually, like, I changed the way I look in an hour. I walk out of the gym, I walk out and I literally see how I look different.
So do you want me to show you an exercise? I can show you an exercise just for giggles.
Sure.
So this is a big, like, Naudi Aguilar one, the guy that we were just talking about, that they do a lot. Sorry, I'm in my dad's shop, so give me 1 second.
What's Naudi connected to again?
Functional patterns.
Functional patterns. What is FRC? I know it's functional range conditioning, but like, is that?
I'm not sure,
Okay.
to be honest with you. Okay. Hold on. Let me throw my fisheye on so you can actually see what the heck I'm doing.
Got to get that iPhone 11, brah.
Yeah. Does it have like a fisheye like setting?
Yeah.
Oh, it does? That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oop, wrong light. Okay. All right, so I just got
This is interesting.
hooked up to the door. You guys, I'm sure, have used door anchors in some capacity, right? So I got
Yeah.
a
Yes.
resistance band coming from here. So this is going to teach like my spine how to elevate. It's like I was talking about, so that way I can rotate better. Like this is one of the better ways to like turn the T-spine on. So you go right here, staying really close to it. And when I go to pull down on this, I'm going to simultaneously try to elevate my shoulders and my rib cage away from my pelvis. So all of those muscles that are like in my spine, they kind of come around to the side of my rib cage. So like intercostals, serratus, and then scalenes, so they can use their posterior function to be able to elevate. So I'm just going to go like this. Usually like what I do is I try to elevate as far as I can before I pull down. So I go up with my shoulders as much as I can.
Kurt, come take the lens off because I'd see you just fine if you took the lens off.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, it's actually better. It's closer.
Way better.
No, I think you were good.
Okay.
Yep.
So usually what I try to do is I'll try to elevate my shoulders and rib cage away from my rib cage before I pull down. So I'm going to go up and then pull down, and I'm just going to hold my elbows at the side of my rib cage with my shoulders elevated as much as I can. And I'm just going to hold it for like 45 seconds to a minute.
So this is like a shrug plus a pull down.
Definitely not I mean, it's more of a straight up than it is like a forward. You want to resist the forward as much as you can.
Yeah.
Because when I go forward.
What is shrugging a forward thing?
I don't know. I guess when I do it, I usually roll forward. But yeah, it's like a up to my ears, I guess. So if that's how
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I was seeing that.
So right here, elevate as much as I can. Hold it for a minute or so, and then do it all over again. And like, it seems to really help. Like we had this guy that works with us, Mitch. He's pitched for the Diamondbacks in the Diamondbacks organization, up to AA, I believe. He had very compressed rib cage and very like angled shoulders, kind of like UCAS. And he was exhibiting a lot of pain, like kind of in the sides of his rib cage, like here. And we put him on a program to do that stuff, and like that pain just kind of went away, and he wasn't having as much pain throwing either. So I don't know.
I was just talking because Dials does CrossFit. And so we were talking too about, because he was very similar to me, like jacked up UCL, just like literally couldn't throw at the end of his career. And then he was talking about how we both share the sentiment of like, the great thing about CrossFit is it's dumb, super dumb if you don't know what you're doing. But when you know what you're doing, you're moving through all of your ranges of motion. You know, if you go through a 3 to 6 month thing and like have some sort of a level of intelligence with like, don't kill yourself, right? Like just if you're going to hurt, like for me, if I'm going to rip my hands, I just stop. I don't care if I'm 2 minutes into a 30-minute workout. I'm not going to rip my hands, because when I rip my hands, the next week is the shittiest week ever. And
Right.
so it's very similar to like, okay, if I'm super sore, for me, I did a competition, my first, maybe my only CrossFit competition. I like to work hard. I don't like to work that hard. I effed up my back on a deadlift, and it's like, I knew that I was going to do this. And then I did it anyway. Like, I knew it was going to be a bad idea for me to push myself in that way.
Right.
Point is this. I have two different things that is going through my head right now. What I just got done saying with Rue, like, what if I have somebody, just massage me and make sure that all my muscles are able to do what they do, rip me apart as possible, as much as possible, take 2 months, whatever it needs to be. Is that more beneficial than me sitting and, trying to work through these movements? And the only reason that I'm asking the question, maybe we can't even answer it, but the point is the thing about ART is that is one of the, nobody's saying that. Like, I don't hear people saying, hey, one of the things that you should do as a high school or college or professional athlete is make sure that you go and do these things and then work out, right? So the loosen, lengthen, strengthen idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Loosen things up, get your soft tissue work done, lengthen the muscles, and then strengthen them. And it's curious to me that these things are not more commonly married.
So I think my position is that, like, not that I disagree with you, I agree with you fully, but the challenge with like having like working with a chiropractor or having like a massage therapist like work with you is that ideally, like, if things are like working properly, you should be able to use your own musculature to be able to kind of make those adjustments on your own. So like that exercise, for as an example, like when I do that a lot, like I can literally like crack my back myself, like without like grabbing onto something. I can just like flex my abs. And
that's what I was getting at. Yep. And so the adhesions are things that I'm like, okay, if these are as legit as, or it's not just legit or real. It's just like, it seems that they're quite a bit more inhibitory than we're giving them credit for, because people don't talk about adhesions. This is not in general nomenclature. But what you just said was basically what I was trying to get at, is like, does movement release an adhesion? And
I think if you're hard enough at it, yeah. But I think if you pair that with massage or myofascial release or whatever the hell you want to call it, like, yeah. But
and I don't know enough, but that's where Rue is like, because he messed up his back in rugby, and this dude's 6'5", 300 pounds. Playing, by the way, he was playing for the Minnesota Gophers as a junior in high school. Like, what?
Yeah.
For rugby. Maybe it was senior. It doesn't matter. I didn't even know you could do that.
I didn't either.
And so that's where I've really, the answer is probably both, right? The answer is like, do as much as you possibly can, and align them with your goals. Because anyway, I have learned so many things from moving, and I think at the end of the day, all of this stuff, I think it's intimidating to hear all of the things that are out there for doing it the right way, right? So when you talk to me about functional patterns, and then when somebody brings up, a WEC method certification, and now I have a driveline certification, and now there's it's just endless. You could get CSES, and it's just like, you could honestly fix a lot of these things, or there are solutions to most of these by just moving more frequently, and then it gets to the point where you're at where you have a lot more educated, like you have smarter guesses on where you should prescribe and do things for people and for yourself, right? But it'll always evolve, and you'll never be able to say anything with a complete level of certainty. And
I mean, that's the journey, right? I mean, you just try to get better every day. So
yeah. So I've been really into the I'll drop off at this, and what was who said it, John, where it was it was Brett Wagner. He goes, Randy Sullivan always tells me that baseball or pitching is the only thing that people think that they can do less of and get better at. Or throwing it. I think he might have just said throwing. It's like nobody else treats it like that. Yeah, and then he brought up the point, because we were just like, what's the difference? He goes, listen, people are just throwing more. And when you throw more, you get better at throwing. So we are just conditioning the body to be able to handle a higher volume of throwing. And it's like, couldn't agree more. Like, it's not that complicated. And then, I mean, it is if you try to make that happen in 18 months, right? But if you're just like,
Right.
that's the way that I'm going to behave this whole entire time, you know, even if it's at the age of 12, right? That's just like, you have just so much time. 15
I mean,
even,
it's funny,
but you know,
the only time that I ever had arm soreness ever was in college, and that's when I stopped playing football and I played quarterback. So it's like I always threw the ball like the whole year, whether it be a baseball or a football, and then like I could throw forever in baseball, and then I stopped playing football, and it's like, well, now I can't throw forever ever anymore. Like, what the hell happened? So
that's crazy. Yeah. And then, I mean, for me, John and I have both always described having a rubber arm. And then mine was just like, I didn't do anything and just didn't listen to my arm. Like, I actually probably didn't. I mean, there's part of it's like movement, you know, my movement wasn't efficient enough. I know that, but then it kind of was, because I literally didn't have problems for months and years. And then I would take a break and I come back and it's just effed. So I remember my freshman year, he must have got a call. Shoot. I remember freshman year of college. Yeah, John, can you hear him?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I got
Yeah,
you.
he can't.
I just,
Yeah.
call came through, so it just kicked me out for a second.
Sometimes it kills the audio, so you can hear both of us.
Yep.
Great news.
Perfect.
Shoot, I lost my train of thought. I was in the middle of.
You were a freshman in college.
Oh yeah, and so I broke my wrist. This is actually a stupid story and worth hearing if you haven't heard me say this. I slid feet first into second base playing Legion baseball the summer after my senior year, and I broke my right wrist. Slid on my left butt cheek, feet first into second base, and the shortstop had come across the bag, and like his shin kind of like bumped into my wrist and shattered my wrist. Is the weirdest injury ever. I mean, not shattered, but like I fractured it. And
Right.
I think I might have got thrown out. No, I think I was thrown out, and then go out and I played third. 2 of the 3 balls were hit to me. 2 of the 3 outs were hit to me. So I had to catch a pop fly, and then I had to throw the ball to first base with a broken wrist, and I did. It was like a little dribbler, and like I had no time. And I'm like, this is so bad. I asked to get taken out of the game. I never do that. The next day, I went and played another game because I'm like, damn, I just got to do. And I hit a triple. And so I went 1 for 3 with a triple. I'm like, okay. And then I went to the doctor. They're like, yep, you have a broken wrist. So anyway, I'm making that story long, but I didn't throw all summer is the point. And so I went into fall and I threw 1 inning in my freshman year of fall, and my arm was so damn sore that I didn't throw the rest of this season or throw the rest of the fall. And I'm telling you, I actually haven't thought about this. Everybody knows how important it is. If you're a freshman and you go in, you have to dominate in fall for you to have playing time. So I had 1 inning, and I didn't. I was actually a way better hitter than I was a thrower at the time, and I hadn't seen a live pitch in forever. So I mean, I was swinging and missing at BP fastballs, and I was nervous as hell. All of these things, and I'm getting stuck up on this because it hadn't occurred to me how much that had an impact on what I was able to do the next 4 years. I've always thought about it as like oh yeah, my freshman year I pitched 6 2/3 innings, and like I was a disaster all over the place. But yeah, that had a huge negative effect on me. And I obviously couldn't throw. I broke my right wrist. Like, what am I gonna do? But what could have I done, John? I could have done arm throws with my cast on. I could have been doing overload training all summer long with my freaking 2-pound cast. Have you seen us do hand throws?
I don't think so.
This is one of my favorite things that John has shown. Besides the glove and the hand throws, we actually did this. John, what's the remote training video that you created where we do this, where we demo this? Do you remember when we did it right at the beginning of?
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, so we did. It was this would have been late March. So
we called it how to warm up for remote training with us.
Okay, and so the idea would be, how many times do people not have equipment is more frequent than they would like, and people don't have solutions for that. And so the towel drill, I mean, I'm going to say that, I don't care. Tom House just like freaking a week or two ago, was on his Instagram saying the towel drill is the best drill for XYZ and ABC. I'm like, bro, like this is the thing with the towel drill, layback doesn't happen authentically, and just so many things. And you could actually do it. So here, for those of you that are watching and you want to do towel drill, take video of yourself doing a towel drill into the air, like literally long toss kind of towel drill. Make your target higher and you will start getting more authentic actual feelings of what's going on. And they do allude to this. They go, make sure that you're not doing towel drill on a bucket out in front of you. The biggest mistake that we see. But then they demo it and they show the same crappy stuff. So here's my point. I'll get to it. When you do glove throws and when you do hand throws, it's the same exact thing. You go look at yourself in slow motion on video and you actually do it loose and you will display the same movement patterns. So when people like suggest that the towel drill, oh, you know, it's close enough. Of course, it's not gonna be the same. It's only a towel. They say in their video that it's 3 or 4 ounces. Have you seen somebody throw a 3 to 4 ounce ball with 0 layback? It's a different move, you know? So when you rip a 3 ounce plyo ball, you get almost the same amount of layback. I don't know. Maybe I don't do enough research, but I get so jacked up about when I think about these things because I'm like, you don't have to think that long to realize that. So anyway, hand throw. Throw your hand. If you were going to throw, and you normally think about throwing at home plate, the feeling of doing a hand throw correctly is shooting your hand up like up and to the right. That's where you have to throw your hand because this is what's actually doing it. So think about a wrist weight. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're creating that tolerance, right? So they just go away from them. Yes. Okay,
Yep.
That's healthy elbow extension. That's why they make sense. So you just have to, the great thing about hand throws and glove throws is is that
Afterwards.
happy anniversary,
Wife says hi.
guys.
Thank you.
Oh.
I'll let her know.
Yesterday.
Yesterday was our anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Healthy elbow extension because you don't worry about anything else besides the hand. And so the biggest negative with like a glove throw or a hand throw is that you could misplace the healthy elbow extension. Does that make sense?
I think.
Okay, so let me use here. Okay, well, I want to actually do it without showing because we have people that just listen to this. So, okay, so let's imagine that you're releasing the ball, okay, and so you're at pitch release. And your hips, your pelvis is facing home and your shoulders are facing home. Okay, everything is just squared up. Your right shoulder is not in front of your left shoulder. You are just completely neutral with third and first. Okay, I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying, okay, let's work from 0 degrees is right there.
I got you. You're fine.
Okay, and then I'm saying for the people at home too. So what I'm saying is, okay, so healthy patterns are going to be. And this isn't real. I think the average is like 30 degrees in front. So the back shoulder, you know, at pitch release is roughly 30 degrees in front of the front shoulder at pitch release. Yep. I think John is closer to 45, and I've made comments in other episodes of how I think that there might be something to that idea that he errs on that 45-degree side because he loses it back here. He has early trunk rotation, but he gets away with it because of how much he gets his right shoulder in front of his left. Okay, so you understand the degrees, 30 to 40 degrees, somewhere in there. And then there's the upwardness. So you have to actually feel the hand go that way. What I'm doing right now is I'm like, so imagine if you're at a stadium, I'm right-handed, I'm throwing my hand up at the upper deck, right? Because what happens at the end, where's my hand, is my hand does this.
Yeah.
So this makes this, I'll get there. Okay, so if you remember, do you remember the Trevor Bauer video when he was talking about what creates, if you release the ball completely out to the side, it's actually the best for velocity, but it's the worst for health. And then if you throw the ball like straight in front of you, that's the best way for health. Okay, and that's just healthy elbow extension. So the point is that when we do this correctly, no matter what, there is still force going away from the shoulder. Like the hand, this is centrifugal force. That's what it is, right? And so my point is when you have an implement in your hand, it's much less obvious how to create healthy elbow extension because you're worried about the implement. So whether it's a ball, whether it's a towel drill, whatever it is, your body will innately choose to prioritize that. And when you prioritize the hand and you're throwing the hand, you can now create healthy elbow extension. Because that's what you're searching for. You're not searching for a release point. You're not searching for this to be as hard as you can, or it's just, it shows you what healthy elbow extension is. And so what it's allowed me to do is I was scared to throw as hard as I could because of I have a torn rotator cuff labrum, UCL, like a lot of things going on, adhesions everywhere, right? And so I was scared to make like high effort throws like this, and let the shoulder relax. And as soon as I started doing hand throws, I realized that if I extended in a healthy way, if I had healthy elbow extension, that I had zero discomfort in my shoulder. So the last thing, and then I'll shut up. So this just goes back to the wrist weight thing. So you should hypothetically be able to throw your arm away from you with a implement in your hand as hard as you possibly can with zero discomfort. Like you'd really have to get distracted. You'd really have to distract the hand with a lot of weight or force or whatever. And I just don't see that happening. So that's my point. But then people don't express that healthy pattern when they do this. So that's where the hand throw can happen. Can you help me? Do you know what I mean by that direction? Is there a better way to describe that? Or
Cass, can I say one thing? So like when you're doing this, like when you're saying like up towards the upper deck, that's why the overhead stuff is important. Like you're doing it in the context of rotation so the arm doesn't go up, but that movement is relevant as far as getting your arm out towards your target. That's why John can get 45 degrees of trunk rotation when he releases the ball, is because he can do that.
So again, this is I don't understand.
Thanks,
I just don't understand how much
What'd you
it is in the, he said, thanks.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is how you just have to, like, that's not what's moving. Like your lat is lengthening. This is a thoracic move. Like this is not independently up and down. Like it's
Cass,
gonna sit in here.
Have you read the book Anatomy Trains, or even looked at like the posters of like the lines of fascia and stuff like that?
No.
So you should just Google it. Just type in like Anatomy Trains posters and then like look at them. Like basically like our lines of fascia, like they can only get so lengthened, and then they have to like shorten. It's just like a muscle, except like a line of fascia is just like a chain of muscles, basically, right? It's basically what the kinetic chain is. It's just like an actual like visual way of like seeing what it is. So like when you think about like your lateral line, like if you can get your arm up like this and create a shit ton of length, I don't know if I can swear on here, sorry. Create a bunch of length
definitely
right
swear.
Here, then that allows me to get my arm out really, really far this way when I rotate, so I can get that trunk rotation for healthy deceleration. Like if I
Is Steve Cishek an overhead thrower? Are sidearm and submarine guys overhead throwers?
That's not the argument I'm making. No,
I'm asking.
I don't think so.
But they are.
But the length of their lateral line is still really important. I'm not saying that you have to be an overhead thrower. I'm saying that if you can
That's not what I'm
lengthen
saying
your
either.
lateral line during your throw, even if your arm is not up really, really high, then you can get that trunk rotation that you're looking for.
But this is what I'm saying is Steve Cishek should be classified as an overhead thrower then. Because if you take away his ipsilateral tilt and you stand him up, the angles are exactly the same. So the things that I mean, and again, maybe this is something that we have to dig into, and I'm not doing enough homework, but I just don't get it.
No,
I think it's the same. I'm telling people, and again, maybe somebody needs to, maybe I'm not listening enough, but I'm going to tell a shortstop that you should do our program, because when you learn how to throw correctly, I don't care. John and I can go play shortstop. No problem. I can go. We have the ability to play any position on the field because of the work that we've done as pitchers. I'm not saying that's always common, right? But like, I just know that we have good enough patterns to be able to just bend over and throw submarine, bend over, throw sidearm. And like, what I'm struggling with is I understand that you need to lengthen the lat, but I'm not like, when I go to here, like this is lengthening that way. I just don't get it. Anyway, we gotta. This isn't as good for the podcast as it is for us to talk about these things in depth on the phone and other times. But it's an interesting topic, and I appreciate you going this far into it. I think we just talked to like freaking 30 minutes about being an overhead athlete, and I'm not quite so sure that I.
No, but it's confusing. I don't think you guys went into anything that was difficult, because it is confusing. Like there's so much information about it, and whether it's an overhead or it's not, or and even when you guys are talking about it and all the phrasing that you're using, like my internal self of how I deal with information, and you guys are just using all of these strong words. It's just nothing but I'm hearing proximals and extensions and numbers and all that stuff. But it's important, you know what I mean? And I can see the debate of what it is. And as I'm watching, Kurt, you're breaking down the information, some of the light that's being brought in there, Cass, I think you guys should keep going into that, because there was things that what I felt and what Kurt was talking about describing, and what you're saying, Cass, that resonate with the feeling that I have, right? So when we get to that 30 to 45 degree angle that you guys are talking about when I'm throwing at release, to me, the right shoulder out front idea is just it's the extension thing, right? The triangle point of extension of the arms, right? If your shoulders are square and your arm goes in front of your shoulder, you can only reach so far, right? Well, as soon as the right shoulder goes forward, you can just go further. I don't know if I was just figured out how to do that, you know what I mean? But I know that it creates my extension, not only as far as like the degrees in front of my shoulder, but like literally closer. So I think personally that costs me a little bit of velo in the acceleration part, but in the same sense, what is velo? Because I'm getting closer when I release it. So then it's changing how, when the hitter's seeing the ball. So, I personally, yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't have any issues. You know what I mean? I never get stuck. My arm always seems to get past my front hip. That's where the rules, those ideas came up, where once I realized how it was to get there and fold, Cass has been talking about folding a lot lately, and I always feel like my shoulders fold into my left hip. And I try to do it as fast as I can when I'm really trying to rip. And looking at old video of myself, it really looks like that's what I'm trying to do, where I'm really just turning as fast and as violently as I can to create that tether ball effect, on that path, to be able to rip that ball all the way around.
I like that you said tether ball. If you have something, Kurt, I have an idea. So if you want to ask something.
No, go for it.
So I talked to Raj last night of Synapse, John, for like 2 hours, and he brought up the tetherball analogy again, basically just saying that we need to have something stable to rotate around in order to rotate efficiently. And my impression is that this is all about the front hip and the front leg, and that's what we're rotating about. And he talked about how in tennis, the glove side can act like a stable thing to rotate around. And this is here we go, rule number 2. So rule number 2, don't cross the hands. This is something that David Weck made me start questioning. Also the fact that people cross, and we know that they're good and they cross, but also we're not saying it's a law. But my point is this: is there something that you know of? Because it used to be this stuff, right? It used to be the equal and opposite, like everything comes back together kind of thing. And then when I watch John throw, his glove side does freeze. If we're going real, right, there's a moment where the glove side does kind of anchor down and stop moving. I don't know what I think what I'm saying is I'm starting to wonder, because we keep on talking about the glove hand going down. I've really talked about, like, regardless of where you are from a slot standpoint, you should be like taking the front shoulder and going boom right onto the front foot. So there should be some sort of elevation into boom, because that verticalization and like going down onto the front foot will make you I mean, it's no different than, I just think it's a better way of thinking about stopping on the front side than thinking about stopping linear. If you think about stopping as being more of a vertical movement, I think it's much more effective in creating the front side block. I got distracted.
I agree.
I am telling you this. Because rule 2. So I'm wondering if I've been trying to figure out if there's like a movement reason or that there's something a little bit like outside of baseball that would help me answer this question. So what I'm saying, let me just fucking show you. Okay, so it would be like, we're saying that this is going to happen, right? We're basically saying that this is going to be happening and that you just go like that, right? And that there's this happening within it. But what I'm suggesting now is that there's this like the natural retraction of getting the hand to come down, right? You positive disconnect, whatever you want to call it. But then the question is it bad to then maintain that as you rotate? Or is it you get to this point and then it stays there? And this is the whole, my coaching college said, imagine your fire poles out here and you get to here and then you stop. And that's like that point of, that's that anchored point. And it happens too much and you have too many people like talking about the glove being tucked and all of that to make me go, I wonder if there's a better way to say rule 2. I'll say one more thing. Okay. So in defense of the rules, okay. Rule 1, good luck arguing that with me because it's the most fundamental thing in sports. Like move in sync with one another. That's all we're saying in rule number 1. Rule number 2, hands don't cross. Okay. Rule number 3, hands go past the front hip. Okay. Rule number 2 and 3 are the same exact rule. Okay. But the thing with the hands crossing is like a lot of people, like a lot of youth athletes cross all the time. So you go and watch a little league game and like everybody on the field crosses, like not some of them, everybody. I was really jacked up about this. Like last year when I went to Arizona to watch Hamlin play, I watched a D3 doubleheader and there were like 4 guys that didn't cross their arms. And the point is what does this mean? This means that they're not finishing their trunk rotation, right? So then rule 3 is never happening. So most of the time when guys cross, youth athletes cross, they don't actually finish their rotation. But when you see Garrett Cole cross, I almost just specifically told that guy. Anyway, when Garrett Cole crosses, his trunk rotation is fantastic, right? He leaves his glove side air, he goes underneath his arm, and his shoulders are completely facing first base by the time by the time he's done. So I don't care if you cross if you have that kind of turn.
Mobility.
And I don't think John would either. He wouldn't be like, oh, great freaking throw, but you cross your arms. It's like, nah, bro, you just like, you threw Ched where you wanted to because that's just what your body wanted to do. So anyway, I don't know if I'm asking.
Is it really a question of how far the front arm goes this way? So like, hold on.
I'm asking is, do you know of a reason, like a real reason why the glove side shouldn't keep moving?
Well, I mean, in a lot of like the row stuff that I do, I usually do like rotational rows. So instead of doing like a row like this or even like a one-arm row, I usually will do a row now like where I'll go like this. And when my arm comes even with my rib cage, I turn it into T-spine rotation. So when I do rows, I'm usually doing like a press on the opposite side, like that kind of.
Well, I think that when you talk about what the body could do, I think there's an argument talking about the chest is the argument would be that the pec just got stretched out. So you could actually, boom, bring that back in, right? So the positive disconnect stretches out the front pec, and then you could actively do the opposite as the T-spine is going in the opposite direction, right? So the T-spine, yeah.
But like this right here isn't really like a supported shoulder position. So like this, if I pull all the way to here, I mean, that doesn't really.
Can you make that move? Do you notice that you're elbowing third base right now? Or first base? Could you make that move down, like to your left foot?
Like that? Like where am I?
That's the move.
I'm just sitting in a chair.
No, that was it. Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Like that?
No. So think about if you take that move to your front foot. Do it one more time. Yeah, that's it. You just have to make sure that you go down. It's
high to low. Think high to low cable pull.
Well, but okay, that's how John says it. What I have been wondering is this is where the WEC method stuff comes in. I'm not discrediting John's stuff, by the way. I think it's the best. It's the best thing that I've.
We know.
I'm saying for the record of the audience. So the WEC method thing of pulsing down into the foot is what I'm really leaning into right now. Is that I think that
say it the way I've been thinking about it since you told me yesterday.
Yeah.
When I pull down from the gun position on my glove side hard, I feel like I add energy to my front leg to help me stop.
Yes. So if I direct my glove side energy anywhere besides down into the left leg, it's counterproductive.
Like,
and then
we do a drill, or I was doing a drill a while ago at the other gym where I was showing guys when we're doing plyo throws to show that you actually have front leg stability and body control. After you throw it, you jump up off your left foot. And it's something
I haven't posted that yet. I have it in slow motion.
But I do it. If you do it right, like I saw a Conyo 100 dude jumping up in the air after the throw. Craziest thing I've ever seen. Right. And then the guy on the same team, I saw someone like use the ground in a weird way. It was almost like he didn't release his backside, also thrown 100. But one of the big things that I noticed is the front leg, like heaviness, right, was unreal with both of these guys, right? One guy was super explosive, got into it and was like Bugs Bunny and like would bounce up in the air with his arm and just be like, he'd finish up in this like Strowman Spider-Man position all the time. I'm like, dude, you are crazy to watch throw. And granted, weird control, not very good, right? But threw 100, but he was more of a slider, fastball middle slider guy. And then the other dude was just a different kind of movement, much slower, but like really just dragging into the earth and like just creating, a really stable lower half with a fast upper half on rotation.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's strange. I don't know. I think I'd have to learn more about like the WEC thing about like pulling that front side down to like be able to.
Well, okay. So have you seen the pulsers?
I don't think so. Is that the things that you like swing around and stuff?
No, that's the RMT ropes. You're talking the ropes, right?
Like little sand shakers. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so the idea is that you're double down pulsing is the phrase. So both hands go like this. Okay, and so if I was going to round first base, which is, by the way, this is one of the biggest reasons in baseball why I don't know how these are not going to just blow up in baseball. Okay, so actually that's not fair. Okay, so if I'm rounding first base, most people are going to like race car drive it and like lean this way. But if you pull your hands over on this side of your body and start pulsing, you like drift. So that's like one little thing where hand placement just like in locomotion in general, I've never heard anybody talk about it. So that where the hands are and then the act of the both hands pulsing down. So these just like make you feel it as you jog. And then like jumping, gosh, dude, do you know, this is the other thing. Do you know how many people throw their arms up as they jump? Hey, I'm going to throw some force up that way while I'm trying to put force into the ground. That makes no sense at all. And so these, dude, I don't have to say that. I'm just so excited because it exposes jumping patterns, it exposing shuffle, like the whole thing. And so that's where it stemmed from. And so what I find myself doing as I run with them is I'll start directing my these pulsers too much one way or the other. And I have the 12-ounce ones, which they don't make anymore. So they're all 8-ounce ones now. But so it's real obvious to me, is my point, is when I don't pulse into my foot because I don't get the added benefit of like that thing, and so that's where it's all stemmed from. It's stemmed from, you're trying to create ground reaction force. So why wouldn't you put more force into your leg? And so use your upper half to pulse into the ground and you gain the benefit of that. There's other things. It's a little, he's so dramatic, and I don't help because I'm dramatic a little bit too. But there are moments where there have been moments, and he's described this, so I get it. But there have been moments where I go, oh my gosh, this is easier the harder I try. And that means the harder that I pulse down, the more I like get it back. So if you go like that, if you throw your shoulder down as hard as you can, what's it going to do?
It's going to come back up.
It's going to come back up. And so the more that you give down into the pulse, the more that you receive the recoil of it. And then all you have to do is just like, boom, let it go. And then let it go. And then you start playing with the hands too. So you start like opening one joint as you close the other one, opening one joint as you close the other. And so I've really been playing with this as I'm running. And
well, have you ever done that? Have you ever seen like, or have you ever tried to almost like run like you're doing a doggy paddle?
No, tell me more about that.
It's fascinating. So if I'm running and I'm trying to run for time, so like let's say I'm trying to run like a quarter mile as fast as I can. If I run and I think like when I go to run, every time that I go to bring my arm back, I'm gonna do it like I'm swimming and like stroke like this. It's absurd how much faster I run with the same effort.
Okay, so I'm not this is just an interesting take when I hear that. Okay. I love this part. So to me, it's not, this is what's wrong about that from my experience is that it's a overhand move. Running is an underhand figure eight. What you just showed me was an overhand figure eight. So why I think it works is because, okay, this move is not the move. It's the move after that that matters. Because this is the move,
Sure.
This is the loading move, right? So yes, functionally it's great, but then the point is
thinking the run is coming from, right? So if it's the muscles that are in your core that are driving the thoracic spine movement to be able to keep your legs straight when you run, then like it's kind of both moves. It's not just one or the other. But I do hear what you're saying. His
argument is that, I don't know. Form running is what he's attacking, and I don't ever hear David talking about. I don't know. Anyway, again, that part is out of my lane. I know enough to like be interested in things, but I can't sit and have a roundtable discussion on David.
I can't either.
David, yeah. So anyway,
you should try it. If you go for a run,
oh, for sure,
just for giggles, for a quarter mile, be like, I'm going to swim for this quarter mile, and listen to your run timer. You're going to be like, wow. Yep.
And again, what I like about that is when you start going here. So when you start turning your hands in, when you start pronating things, you're closing off the shoulder joints. And so most people are running with just open. They're swinging open joints. And when you leverage the internally rotated shoulders, now you have the ability to go boom, right? And so like I'm being dramatic for us to see it, but it's simply that there's so much more rotation in athleticism than I think people understand. And that when we think about running, I don't think people understand or see the amount of rotation in running. So that's kind of, and then going back to your guy saying that throwing is a fundamental human movement. I mean, John loved when I started bringing that up because how many people say that throwing is an unnatural motion, and
everybody.
Yeah,
so I would just,
it's crazy how we deny history, in that idea.
The point is the volume. Like people weren't out like, man, I'm going to throw 700 spears today to like create a tolerance for that time I go out hunting. Like they just did what they had to do.
And picturing caveman throwing academies, like just kids just lined up with technique, just ripping
spears.
Just ripping spears into walls. Plyo spears.
It'd probably be like into slaves or some weird shit.
Just coconuts and rocks into the wall till the arm becomes strong enough to throw the spear.
Got distracted on that.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
okay, so
I don't know.
The rule 2 is the thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's at least finish this idea. Rule number 2 with them crossing. I don't think that there's anything wrong by saying that outside of there might be, I'm trying to figure out if there's something wrong by us saying that. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. So if you leave the left hand like on top of the foot, like in space, right? Not literally on top of the left foot. But if you try to keep the left hand or the left arm over the left leg longer, I wonder if there's a benefit. So all I'm trying to do is figure out if us saying the rules, rule 2, if that's just not very helpful. But I'll say this again, one more time. We don't say the rules to say that they're absolutes. We say the rules because it's one of the best ways we've ever seen kids react to information. So whether you're 5 or whether you're 25, when you have 3 simple guidelines to follow and they're the rules that John thought of, it just happens to fix a bunch of shit. So it's not foolproof. You have to know what you're doing.
I'll loop in a little science thing that we used to say a lot, like when I used to work at the Food and Drug Administration. All models are wrong, some are useful. So like, you're never gonna invent something that's like perfect. Like, and if you try to invent something that's perfect, you're gonna create too many rules and you're gonna overfit. So like John, I think like, I can't speak on like the quality of the rules that you have because like I don't like really use them and I don't really teach throwing like that. But like what I will say is that like I think a good general rule is if you have like rules that govern anything, if you have less than like 4 or 5, then you're probably in a good place. Because if you try to create like 12 rules, no one's going to satisfy all 12. And you're just going to be searching for perfection, and then you won't be able to actually develop people into good athletes because they'll just get locked in. What is that? Oh yeah, of course. So yeah, so like for me, like I don't have 3 like movement rules that I would just shout off the top of my head for like hitting, but like my 3 things that I'm always trying to fit are get in the way of the ball as quick as possible, create as much force as possible, and stay in the way of the ball for as long as possible. And as long as those 3 things are like optimized, then we're good. And everything that I come up with or that I work on, like movement wise, like if it doesn't fit those 3 things, it's out and I don't use it. So
Can you again, have you thought it's like something occurred where you're like, oh yeah, I can't use that because it doesn't follow those?
Yeah, like a million things. Let me see if I can think of one.
I'm just curious.
I mean, not to do the whole like let's talk about teacher man thing, but just
let's
like
do it.
I mean, like, you know, teacher man always does like the like how quick can you hit the ball kind of thing, which is like
Q, baby.
really important. What's that?
Launch quickness. I'm tongue in cheeking.
Yeah. So like, while that's like really important and you want that number to be like as low as possible, like if that also doesn't satisfy the other 2 rules, like if you aren't able to keep your bat in the way of the ball for as long as possible, and also if that doesn't generate the most force possible, then like I throw it out. So like as long as you're within, you know, a couple, meaning like 2 or 3 hundredths of a second of that numeric value that teacher man's guys are creating, and then you're able to make that up on the backside with the power that you create and with how long you're able to stay in the path of the pitch, then like that's a sacrifice that I'm okay with making. So it's like a conscious decision on my part to not chase that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think what's so helpful is that, you know, you alluding to 3 or, you know, just a small amount. It's not that that's the end all be all. It's not that that's like the end. It's that you have to have a beginning, right? And so like, whatever, I don't care. It's not like Richard watches this shit. Where is any of that simple? You know, and that's one of the things that me and Retka talk about, and we've talked about a lot of times. It's like, you know, he was just talking about having Richard out back 2017, I think. He brought him out to Minnesota. That's where our relationship started. And it was like, that was the best that he could do at that point. But then immediately there was just so many things. It just wasn't working. His kids weren't getting better. They weren't responding to that stuff because it's so complicated. Like, I literally had to have this guy come out to like try to explain to me what I didn't understand. And, you know, how many times have we had conversations about clarification on this stuff and that it didn't become so clear, you know? And then, oh man, this is more of just like Doug Latta is so great. And that's what I was so attracted to, right? Is that it just made it so simple and it gave you a starting place. And it's like, what's the most important thing? Balance. What else? No, well, balance. No, what else? Balance. And it's like, well, the point is that if you have the security and you've done the work, you know, the mental security, it's like, I don't need to tell you what balance is to me. Like, you can come and train with me and find out. But it allows then, you know, the person that isn't super geeked out about that to be accessible too, you know. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've realized is, you know, John's over here saying like, dude, you guys get a little wordy. And it's like, yeah, I know a lot of people don't like that. And you want to know how I know? Just go try something new. Go play a new sport, play a new game, do something new. And then when they start trying to make it complicated, you'll notice. And yeah, so anyway, that's something that I remember my bosses in Minnesota saying, what are the 3 most important things in pitching? I'm like, hell if I know. I can't answer that. There's 17,000 things. But
anyway, from my perspective, it's always, those are the 3 universal truths that I'm always trying to accomplish. And the things like the movement things, like for example, like the rules, like you guys are talking about, John, like my rules may change over time, like based, like if I find new information that satisfy the 3 parameters that I'm trying to address. Right. So like right now, like the I guess if I were to say like 3 rules, it would be like move forward, head back, and keep your hands high. And then like rotate, obviously that would be like number 4, but like that's kind of like a universal of like everything I do, so I don't really have to talk about it.
Do those things and then don't swing. Like, it would never happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Move forward, keep your head back, and keep your hands high, and then just watch the ball go by you. Like, that wouldn't happen. I think it would just right. That's your point.
So
I want to say something funny right now, and maybe. So for those of you that are listening, I'm holding up a picture of me and my best friend Lincoln catching. He caught me. This is like the only picture I have of me playing baseball. I'm only telling you this because I just went like this. I touched my picture, my real life picture frame, and tried to blow it, thinking I could zoom in like it was a phone. And I think that is ridiculous that our brain does that to us sometimes.
Unreal.
That's funny.
Oh man. Shit.
Kurt, let's transition a little bit over to like what you got going on over there. You know, in Virginia. I've seen a bunch of your stuff. You've been putting on some quality content. Can we talk about, you know, the business, you know, and where you're at? What do you like right now?
Yeah, you mean like with COVID and all this?
Well, I mean, yeah, anything. What's new on the brain? I mean, this time I've really been liking asking a lot of people, because it seems like that the incubation period has really allowed for people to like expand some ideas and some thoughts on things. So I'm just wondering if you have anything new that you're, you know, kicking right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like a lot of the posture stuff, like some of the stuff I showed you guys, I've been doing a lot of that stuff lately, and really diving into how much space we're able to create between our vertebrae, like relates to how well we can rotate. Like that's kind of been like my rabbit hole that I've been down lately.
Is that vertically?
Yes. So that's kind of like the rabbit hole that I've been down lately with regard to like the business. I mean, we've been doing all remote like training for both, like doing some group strength training and then lessons.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about this, like the team that you created? Because that's new to this, and I actually don't know exactly who's all there either. So Give me a little bit more about like the
you mean,
team and how you guys,
yeah. So, like,
how'd you come together and like what's the expertise? Like, give us a little more insight into your team.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot we hadn't talked about that on this. So, back in, I guess it was like March, I partnered with Aaron Tarr, who at the time was
2019
coach in the area. Yeah, it would have been 2019. Yep. I partnered with Aaron Tarr, who at the time was the high school coach in the area that had won a bunch of conference championships and stuff like that. Now he's the volunteer assistant at Georgetown. So he'll be, obviously their season shut down, so they're kind of on pause right now. And then another guy I partnered with, his name's Lansing Beater. Probably should have got drafted. He is like 5'6" and can still throw like 90, but when he was in college, like he could throw like 94, 95. And he's 5'6", so he's very fast twitch and very, very strong. And he's just a really great baseball guy in the area and really well respected. So those are my two partners. And then
how old are they?
What's that?
How old are they?
Aaron is 40 and Lansing's 26.
Okay, yeah.
And then our guy who's like he works with our catchers, and then he also works with a lot of our pitchers. His name is James Keller. He was working in AA for the Tigers this year, but he obviously the season got postponed, so we're just kind of waiting on that now. So and then the other guy that works with us, his name's Mitch Aker, and he used to play in the Diamondbacks organization as a pitcher. So he has his degree in kinesiology, so he does a lot of our strength training stuff.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we have 2 weight racks there. We have two lanes, one long lane that you can like throw a full pen in, and then one shorter lane that like has our hit tracks in it and stuff like that, where we do most of our hitting stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's not like a huge space, but like it gets it done. Everything we need is right there. When we're functional, we do, lessons and group training. I had, up until that point, I'd built such a lesson following that it was kind of just something that we continued to do. And from sometimes with the intricacy of hitting stuff, like the lesson format does work pretty well, but usually the way it works best is that like you do like a lesson every 2 weeks or like a lesson a month or something like that. And then you would do group training on the sides. That way you can get your throwing work in and you can get your strength work in and like the application of the hitting work. So like, whether you're hitting off a machine or you're just taking batting practice or what have you. So that's kind of the way our business works and it flows. So, we're constantly adapting and evolving. But, that's kind of where we're at right now. And, while we were still able to be open, like it was going great. So,
I really like that, just between our conversations and that how I feel about lessons and stuff. I will stick up for you in that, like the fact that you're pairing that and saying that and creating that language with people. I think for the record, for people that have heard me say that lessons are stupid, that's how you mitigate that, right? Their lessons, of course, are not stupid. If you do something like that, what's stupid is when people pay $75 for a 30-minute lesson or whatever, the $50 for a 30-minute lesson, right? And like that's their training, right? Like we all know that that's not good enough. So I know that like from a homework standpoint, we've talked a lot about, actually, this is a great app. How do you, because you kind of assess your people, you don't just like take anybody. You have to make sure that like they're in, they understand what the kind of commitment is. We've talked about in the past, I've heard Kurt say like, I've had parents that want something completely different than what I want. And I just say that this is not going to work. And we've talked both as young coaches, like it's a really hard thing to turn away people, but you have to. So.
Yeah. I mean, it used to not happen at all, right? I always created the space for it, like in the evaluation to be like, no, but like when you're broke and you're trying to build a business, you just work with anybody, you know what I mean? But then like in the past year, it's been more of a situation where like, if there's someone that like, I don't want to work with because they're not committed or it's like kind of like a babysitting environment where they just want something, something to do for their kid, then like we're just not gonna do it. Like I'll give you like a 5-second example. Like this winter, we did like these like 8-week like hitting camps, which went like pretty well, but generally speaking, the people that like signed up for it, like probably like 75% of them were just like, oh, well, I kind of play baseball. And it just kind of was none of our staff liked doing it. Like I didn't enjoy it, other than like the select 3 or 4 kids that were there that were like awesome to work with. Like I didn't enjoy it. None of our staff enjoyed it. And it's like, one of the biggest things is that like, I want like our staff to feel excited about coming into work and like excited about what they're doing. And they just didn't like it. And I was like, okay, we're not doing it. So like now we don't do those classes anymore because like, if my staff doesn't like doing it, like, why am I going to offer this in a situation where they're not going to be happy like that? So we didn't do it. So, yeah.
I want to just speak on that. Well, I want to also say that this presents a weird. Okay, so let's say we're trying to solve that problem, just for hypothetical.
Sure.
And it wasn't that, another way to solve that problem.
Hey, let me get my phone charger. Give me 1 second. My phone's dying.
Yeah. Well, I can still say this. So it's the idea that. Okay, so you have a bunch of kids that aren't there. So the point is that what Kurt and his people are doing is like they're offering a very quality, high product. Like these guys are super educated, as he already said, and like, so when you have that kind of competency, you typically want that to be matched by the athlete. I heard somebody talking about, this is not baseball related. He was basically, I think he was a professor, and he quit being a professor not because he didn't like what he was doing or the people that he was with, but 18-year-olds couldn't actually understand what he was, they couldn't use what he was saying. So he had fantastic information that was well constructed and basically was like, hey, if you live like this and you make decisions like this, like that's going to have huge implications on your family life, on your personal life, on your business, like all of these things. And he was like, but 18-year-olds don't know how to use that information yet. So I went to more of the 40 to 60-year-olds because these are the kinds of people that are willing to say, I've been doing everything wrong my whole entire life. I'm going to change my behavior because this isn't working. 18-year-olds just don't have the capacity to do that. Like 98% of them don't, right? And so it's very similar to that idea of like, it's so helpful that you're recognizing these things on that, but because you're just doing what you want to do. And I think that's the best thing for everybody. But I just want to say this for the other people. It's like, this is what makes it hard, because if Kurt was to take another solution and Ignite was to take another solution, that would be like, well, these kids don't want to do what we're doing right now, even though this is the right thing for us to be doing. So let's do what they want to be doing. And that's going to look bad to the people buying it. So then they're not buying it. And so this is this weird thing where like, if I actually gave you what you needed right now, you would probably complain that this is not enough baseball, because their lack of interest is like, they're not committed to that level. So they want to just like have fun, And so like in that situation, if you guys would have played like tag and then another game and then another game, and then just like, took BP for 20 minutes, every single kid in that whole thing might have had like, oh, I'm coming back. This is awesome. And then maybe 6 months down the road, that transitions into kids that have seen what the committed people look like, and then they bring them in. The question always comes down to, do I want to be babysitting in this situation? And are people going to do that anyway? Right? Or should I just tell them exactly what you did and make your people happy? And when they're ready to be there, attract the people that work for you. And that's clearly the thing in our world. We talked about it with MSP Fitness, the guy that taught me Olympic lifting, because he turns people away all the time, and they might even want to work with him, but he just knows that he is not looking for somebody who is trying to deadlift 500 pounds in 6 months. He's looking for somebody that wants to be healthy for the rest of their life. And so when people come to him with superficial goals, he just tells them that it's not going to work out. And what I'm saying is like, there's also this part where you could take those people and then educate them and go beyond. But anyway, I'll bring it back to this. Is Raj and I were talking about this, and the point is this: I have never thought about this. I'm always going to be the guy that's like, oh, but those kids, if they get the right thing, I'll inspire them, and then they'll become baseball players, and then I'll have that on my resume. And what Raj brought up is like, these people are always actually just telling you exactly how they are. So most of these people, that 75% of them aren't committed. In 5 years, how much you do, like, let's say you went all in on them, that number is probably only like 50%. Maybe you turn a couple of them. And then the idea too was, what kind of people don't treat things seriously like that? What kind of people pay for that, show up, and then don't take it seriously? Are they just going to become different people in 2 years? Are you really that inspirational? And I'm like, no,
Right.
I'm not. I'm not that cool. I will do my best, but at the end of the day, if you're not very committed as the athlete, it doesn't matter how good I am. So anyway, it's one of those things where as a good coach, you need to recognize who those people are that you need to like encourage and like bring out of the depths. But then also you have to know how to be like, bro, you're never going to be worth my time. And that doesn't mean I think you're a bad person. It's just like I'm clearly setting up my boundaries as a coach and as a trainer.
I think it's just like
uncommon.
about like, how do you as a person want to spend your time? Like, do I want to spend time with people who are passionate about the same thing that I am? And like, the answer is yes. And like, if you don't show any passion, like, what are we doing here? So
your job is not to create passion in baseball. It's to,
Right. And that, I mean, same thing can kind of be said with like trying to like learn new things and like add new things to what you guys are already doing with people. It's like, you know, I'm never afraid to like try something new or different, because like I know that like we could be going the right direction or we could not be going the right direction. And you know, the freedom and kind of flexibility that like all three of us have to be able to do that kind of stuff, like I think is awesome. And I think that's one of the things that's awesome about like working for yourself or working, you know, closely with people that and you can kind of make decisions together. So I mean, we change what we do like every day and always try to like edit. So yeah,
I love it, man. Oh, I'll just say this. We should wrap it up here. We're going on 90 minutes.
No, I gotta get some lunch anyway.
I'll just say this. For those of you watching, they put out, you guys put out fantastic content. What I always appreciate about Kurt is he's always willing to go as deep as you want to go. So we've gone down some huge rabbit holes in our relationship, but then also like you do such a good job of putting these things out and your own content. And I know since the business, you're always hard on yourself. Like, yeah, I could do more. Like, screw it. If you know, the people out there do their homework and they go through your page, man, how many things have we taken back and forth? I'm like, oh my God, this makes me better at pitching. And then you know what I mean? It's just been really fun watching that evolve. So again, the reason why Ignite's a thing is because this dude just doesn't stop learning, and it's been so fun. It's so surreal. Like, we've never met, and I know it's just more common.
Dude, I was supposed to be in San Diego this week.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. It wasn't somebody's supposed to be
a wedding this week. I was supposed to be there, but obviously I'm not now. So
gosh, that was a long time ago that you brought that up.
Yeah, but they had to cancel and move it. So I mean, I guess whenever they move it to, then I guess I'll be in San Diego and I'll let you know. So.
Well, frick, we got Dials out there. Now we got multiple reasons to come out there.
For sure.
And if ABCA's in, you know, if it actually
DC.
happens. Yeah, it's in DC this year.
Cool. Sounds good.
Did you know that?
I think I did, yeah.
Oh yeah, I just found that out yesterday. I wonder if they're gonna have that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it would be, I mean, who knows though? I mean, January's a long way away, but it would be very, very cool if we could get that going again, because that was I needed more time. That's what I needed.
You haven't gone yet, right? You haven't gone yet,
No,
Kurt,
I
right?
gotta go. I haven't gone yet.
Dude, let me tell you. It was.
Uh,
If you're that, I was telling. There was a dad that I thought of right away when we went, because I didn't know that it was open to, like, dads and kids like that. And I think that the ABC is missing out, not allowing more parents, or like pushing that marketing thing, or like having another version of that because of the convention and how many vendors were there and stuff. You know what I mean? Because it would be the greatest thing ever to have like just a general baseball convention, where, you could just go, because I mean, there are literally 2,000 vendors. Like, there's just not enough time in 4 days to go look at all this information. I mean, you can, we walked up and down every aisle, right? But even then, like, you never know. You sit down and talk to a guy, and we were talking to, or no, that was at winter meetings. Never mind. I was mixing that one up, but I was thinking of the Kango guy. Anyway, but which, by the way, we should probably reach out to him, Cass.
Kanga Tech. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should see if he would come on. Nigel, do you know what Kanga Tech is, Kurt?
No.
So we only know about it because we went up to TPI and TPI, Greg Rose, TPI, Titleist Sport. Okay,
Yeah,
just
on base,
Titleist
yeah.
Sport. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just like it's just a thing that tests force. So like you do abduction of like all of your joint. You just go through the gamut, and so it's a tool that tests force. And he was at the winter meetings, and nobody talked to him. This dude he's the head athletic trainer in the Premier League, and he has one of the most like revolutionary tools in sports performance.
Like, he can predict injuries based on force output of the limb.
Yeah, and the fact that not one Major League Baseball team had the wherewithal to do it. I mean, like I think the Angels are working. There was like 2 or 3 that already were, but like, it's crazy. It's brutal. Anyway,
Yes,
ABCA, DC.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't think that you can do it's you're not going to buy it. I'll tell you about it, but like it's a very expensive machine.
I know. I'm just interested.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we should get him on the podcast though, John. That's a really
that would be great. He's
freaking Nigel.
Some good stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's upset with the system as well. Like, he doesn't when we talked to him, it was super cool. So that could be exciting. So
he was joking. He was like, if I was at a soccer thing right now, like people wouldn't stop talking to me. Like, it's just so funny. So anyway, all right, dude, this has been awesome. I'll say things and I'll let John close it down.
No, it's all good, Cass. You can sign off. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Well, Kurt, tell people how they follow you on social media.
Yeah, so Instagram, Ignite_baseball. Actually, that's all of them. So Twitter, Ignite_baseball as well. Facebook is just Ignite Baseball. Feel free to give us a like or a follow.
IgniteBaseball.org.
Yep, IgniteBaseball.org is our website. That's where you find me. Feel free to shoot us a message. We're usually pretty good at responding to that stuff. So.
And pretty much an open book too. So this is, I think the whole entire Ignite family would love to hear some questions from people. So,
for sure.
Open book. So anyway, I wanted to say before we haven't talked a lot about our stuff. So in case people aren't doing this, you should be following us as well on Instagram, because we talk about this. We're highlighting a lot of the people like Kurt. We're giving more context to that. So if you are watching this and you're not following us on our social media, like, figure it out, because it just creates so much more context to our information. And this goes to, and if your people are watching this too, I see this all the time. People, we have free resources all over the place. John's YouTube, Kurt's YouTube, my YouTube. It's supplemental information that people don't take advantage of. So anyway, make sure to check out Kurt. Make sure to check out Ignite. Make sure you're following us to create context for this stuff. Rate, subscribe, review. Did I say anything? Did I miss anything, John?
No, just online store.
Online store. Our hats are glued up, ready to go. It's the best hat in the game. I don't care who you are. It's the best hat in the game.
I'll trade you a t-shirt, or I'll trade you guys t-shirts for hats.
Gotcha.
I don't know, dude.
Okay. Sweatshirt,
I'm just
whatever.
kidding.
Just let
I'm
me
just
know.
kidding.
We'll talk.
Yeah. All right, dude.
He just loves
All
a
right.
good bargain. That's all. He loves a good
That's
barter.
it. That's
You know,
it.
like he's never gonna jump right in and be like, sure. And he's like, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Typical ball
yes.
player. Anyway.
That's right.
Oh,
All right,
great
man. This
job.
has been
All right,
awesome.
guys.
Let's. I'm gonna talk to you later, Kurt, because I still want to go deeper into the open close stuff. But for the rest of you, thanks for watching. If you got this far.